Welcome to the Workflow Podcast. If you enjoy this show, please like, share, and/or subscribe. And now, on with the show. Welcome back to the Workflow Podcast for Season 3, Episode 3, all about saying no. So in the last episode, I introduced the acronym TIRES, how we're all carrying spare tires around that slow us down. Well, the Y in TIRES is saying yes. Now, I recall being at a business event about 2 years ago where a so-called sage on the stage who had moderate business success, nothing worth writing home about, was asked what they credit with their success. What's one thing they credit with their success? And the so-called sage on the stage basically said, just saying yes to everything, because you never know when serendipity is going to strike. And if you say yes to everything, you create more space for serendipity. And yes, that is true to some degree. When you do say yes, there is a chance that something good might come of that. But more often than not, does it? More often than not, when you go to a conference, when you go to a meetup of some kind, when you speak at an event, does some good come of that leads to a business outcome? More often than not, it does not. But here's the thing. It's not like saying yes to one request for your time actually occurs in a vacuum. When you say yes to one thing, whether it's an invite to an event, whether it's an invite to a meeting, whether it is an invite to get coffee and to have someone pick your brain, you're saying no to everything else. Everything else you could possibly be doing in that moment. Perhaps you're even saying no to things that are way more aligned with getting you to your goals. And this is the one thing I want to stress, is it's so easy for us to say yes to all manner of requests on our time, because as human beings, we are, from an evolutionary perspective, we don't want to be ostracized from the tribe. We have an innate tendency to want to satisfy other people, to want to be liked. And so it can be difficult for us to say no. But whenever you have a request on your time, whenever you are fielding a request on your time, just be conscious of the fact that when you say yes to that thing, you're saying no to absolutely everything else. Which reminds me of a story from Dominic Price, who's the resident work futurist at Atlassian. Now, he found that his calendar was just jam-packed with meetings, and he had little time to focus on his own stuff. And when you do that, you essentially have, weeks full of so-called work, but nothing to show for it come the end of the week. Now, what Dominic actually did was he ran an experiment and he started saying no. He started rejecting these meeting invites. And it turned out that only 1/3 of these meeting invites came back saying, "Hey, Dominic, we really need you at this meeting, mate. Can you please come along?" The other 2/3 he didn't hear back from. So he's got a name for these. The ones that didn't come back, they were essentially sticks. The ones that did, they were boomerangs. And just by saying no, he freed up about 15 hours a week that he could then spend on high value work, in getting into the zone, in actually thinking, in doing what he was paid to do, which is knowledge work, rather than just sit in a Zoom call or a meeting room with a bunch of other people and contribute the odd 2 cents here and there. Now, there's something to be said when it comes to the way we steal our colleagues' time, or the way our colleagues steal our time. Oftentimes in many organizations, you can just book time in your colleague's calendar, and it's expected that they will attend. Jason Fried over at Basecamp has a name for this. He calls this calendar Tetris, where your screen will get filled up with blocks, your time will be all blocked out, and there'll be absolutely no time for you to get stuff done. And one way around this is to cultivate cultures where we respect people's time. And if we're going to invite them to a meeting, it's clear why we need them there, what value they're going to bring. rather than just outsourcing accountability to everyone and anyone, so that we don't have to take personal responsibility for our decisions and our actions. And this manifests in 10 people turning up to a meeting. This also manifests in having 10 people in a reply all email trail. So, how do we go about saying yes or no consciously? Well, one method that I've come across, or at least developed to help navigate these waters, is to reflect on these three factors. 1, who do you want to be? Like, what are your values? Who do you want to be? 2, where do you want to go? What are your objectives? What are your goals? And 3, how are you going to get there? Now, once you answer these questions, it's going to give you a much better grip on whether or not the request on your time is aligned with your values, your objectives, or your process. Is it going to help you become who you want to be? Is it going to help you get to where you want to go? Or is it just going to take time away from those things? If it's going to take time away from those things, then you definitely want to be saying no to those things, at least more often than you say yes. Because as human beings, we are always fighting what Stephen Pressfield, author of The War of Art, calls the resistance. We're always trying to fight the urge to pick the low-hanging fruit. As I said in the previous episode, Tim Urban calls this the instant gratification monkey, and it can be so easy for us to say yes to all sorts of, say, meeting requests, because it's so much easier for us to sit in meetings all day long than it is to actually get into deep work and create some real value. So don't confuse motion with progress. And to close out this episode, yes, serendipity is real. Yes, startups that are based, say, in an area with a large density or a high density of entrepreneurs, of other investors and so on, are much more likely to get funded and are much more likely to be successful just because of the chance encounters that happen in those environments. And you can cultivate serendipity in your life, but just being more intentional about how you do that and not saying yes to absolutely everything that comes your way, perhaps just saying yes to things that might be somewhat aligned with who you want to be and where you want to go. And also maybe having a calendar where maybe 1 hour a week you contribute or you devote to saying yes to things that perhaps you normally wouldn't say yes to, or to saying yes to things that are somewhat aligned with your mission but not 100% aligned, just because something good may come out of that. The other thing you might want to do if you are evaluating these opportunities for serendipity, say you're invited to an event, well, hopefully you can get access to a list of attendees. So for example, if I'm going to, say, cut out an hour of my week every week to cultivate, hopefully, the space for serendipity, and I'm going to do that by attending local meetups, well, I could have a better outcome if I review the attendee list on the meetup page, see if there's anyone who is aligned with what I'm working on, who I want to meet, who I think could benefit my work, who I think I could benefit. I'll make a note of those people, I'll go to that event, and then I'll specifically seek those people out. That way I can give myself a better chance of a return on investment on my time at that event, and I'll meet some other people as well while I'm there as an added bonus, and that may lead to some unexpected chance encounters and some butterfly moments as well. But definitely giving yourself a calendar to do these things, giving yourself an upper limit, saying yes to things that are somewhat aligned to your values and your objectives, at least somewhat aligned, if not completely aligned. That way you can say yes to things intentionally and say no to things that are not aligned with where you want to go, where you want to be. Because ultimately, as James Clear put it in his book, Atomic Habits, if you get 1% better every day, you end up 37 times better at the end of the year. And not only that, but if you, say, shift course by 1 degree, you'll end up in a vastly different place. So saying yes to a lot of things over the course of your year can radically disadvantage where you end up at the end of that year. Now, when you are saying no to people, you can do that without being an asshole. You can say, hi, Steve. Thank you so much for thinking of me. I've decided to say no to any new opportunities right now just because I'm swamped working on 2 or 3 key priorities for me right now. And any time that I get away from those priorities, I want to spend with my family, with my friends, and on my health. It's my blanket policy right now. So I hope you understand. But here are some people who I think you might get benefit from talking to, or here are some resources that might be helpful. So something like that, where you're acknowledging them, you're saying thank you, but you're also saying you've got key priorities right now, your family is important to you, your health is important to you. It's a blanket policy, so that way they don't take it personally. And you're also leaving them with some value in the sense of other people or other resources that might help them on their journey. So that's it for this episode of the Workflow Podcast on how to say no and why you should say yes less often, because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to everything else, and that could include your priorities. I'm going to leave this one there. Until next time, Workflow is out, and I am gone. Peace.